What happens when a woman with everything, a fortune, a family, leaves it all behind for a younger man? You'll be shocked by the truth her son reveals at the wedding, a truth that changes everything. Stick around to find out how one choice unravels the lives of everyone involved. Rachel Halloway, a strikingly beautiful woman in her early 40s, seems to have everything anyone could ever dream of. With a portfolio of luxury homes, a closet full of designer clothes, and a life filled with gala dinners and extravagant vacations, she is the epitome of wealth and success. On the surface, her life is flawless. Married to Robert Halloway, a successful, powerful businessman who spends more time in boardrooms than at home, and raising 2 children in a life most people could never imagine. To the outside world, Rachel is the picture of grace and elegance, the ideal wife and mother. But behind her polished appearance, Rachel's world is falling apart. She feels more like a trophy wife than a partner, trapped in a marriage that is a mere shell of what it once was. Robert, once the man who swept her off her feet, has become a distant figure in her life. His obsession with work has eroded their connection, leaving Rachel feeling lonely, neglected, and emotionally unfulfilled. The love they once shared has been replaced by indifference, and Rachel finds herself searching for something more, something real. Despite the glittering world she inhabits, Rachel's days are long and empty. In the mornings, Robert leaves for work before she even wakes up, and by the time he returns at night, she's already in bed, waiting in silence. The house, a magnificent mansion with marble floors and high ceilings, feels cold and lifeless. Rachel walks through it as though she is a ghost, surrounded by wealth, yet deprived of warmth and connection. Her children, especially her 16-year-old son Alex, are the only reason she keeps going. But even her relationship with them has become strained. Alex has grown distant, preferring his own company, and Rachel struggles to maintain the closeness they once had. Then there's Jake Matthews. In his mid-20s, Jake is everything Rachel's life is not. He's young, spontaneous, and filled with energy. A personal trainer by profession, Jake works at a local gym, earning just enough to get by. His life is simple, filled with physical challenges and clients who rely on him to motivate them, but it's a far cry from the lavish yet empty existence Rachel knows. Jake is passionate about life, full of dreams and ambition. He thrives on human connection, and he finds beauty in the little things that Rachel has long since overlooked: sunsets, fresh air, laughter. Their first meeting is completely unplanned. Rachel attends a dinner party hosted by a mutual acquaintance, a woman who insists she bring a date. She reluctantly agrees, not expecting much but a chance to break away from the monotony of her marriage. That night, she meets Jake. He's charismatic, charming, and unlike anyone she's ever known. There's an undeniable chemistry between them from the moment they speak. Jake's carefree attitude and playful banter draw her in, and she finds herself laughing for the first time in what feels like forever. Rachel is taken aback by how comfortable she feels with him. For the first time in years, she feels seen, appreciated, not just as a wealthy woman, but as herself. Jake listens intently when she speaks, his eyes not filled with the judgment that Robert often directs at her. Instead, there's admiration, respect, and even a touch of longing. Their conversations flow effortlessly, and for the first time, Rachel begins to wonder if she's been living in the wrong world all along. Over the next few weeks, Rachel finds herself seeking Jake's company more and more. Their casual meetings evolve into secret dates. He takes her to local parks, small art galleries, and simple coffee shops, places Robert would never consider. Rachel feels alive again, rediscovering parts of herself she thought she'd lost. With Jake, she no longer has to hide behind the facade of the perfect wife and mother. For the first time, she feels like she can be vulnerable, something that has been impossible in her marriage. But Rachel's connection with Jake doesn't come without consequences. She knows she is betraying Robert, but the allure of Jake's youthful energy and passion is irresistible. The more time she spends with him, the more she realizes how far gone her marriage really is. She is trapped in a gilded cage, surrounded by luxury, but drowning in loneliness. The choice she faces is difficult. Stay in her empty marriage for the sake of her children and social standing, or risk everything for a chance at happiness with Jake. Torn between the life she's always known and the life she's come to crave, Rachel makes a decision that will forever change the course of her life. She confronts Robert with the truth. The conversation is difficult, painful, and filled with anger. Robert, blindsided by Rachel's admission, reacts with a mix of rage and disbelief. The argument is long, drawn out, but Rachel stands firm. She tells him she can no longer live this lie. She wants a divorce. She wants Jake. In the days that follow, Rachel feels both liberated and conflicted. The luxury of her past life, her home, her possessions, no longer hold any value to her. She's chosen the unknown, the risky path, in the hopes of finding something deeper and more meaningful. But nothing could have prepared her for the fallout from her decision, especially when Alex, her son, becomes aware of the situation. Rachel thought leaving Robert for Jake would give her the freedom she so desperately craved. But as the honeymoon phase of their new life together wanes, the reality of her decision sets in. She adjusts to a life that is simpler, certainly, but also more unpredictable. Jake's apartment is small, and their finances are stretched thin, but what they lack in material wealth, they make up for in laughter, spontaneity, and passion. Yet Rachel starts to feel the pull of her old life, the luxurious dinners, the high society gatherings, the sense of belonging in a world where she was always the center of attention. While Jake can offer her genuine love and affection, he can't provide the status or security that she had with Robert. The conflicting emotions of feeling both liberated and uncertain start to weigh heavily on her. There are nights when Rachel lies awake, wondering if she's made a terrible mistake, torn between the love she's found with Jake and the comfort she had with Robert. She finds herself longing for the life of luxury, for the social standing she once enjoyed. But each time she considers reaching out to Robert or going back to the life she knew, she's confronted by the raw reality of the truth. She left because her marriage had died, and she can never go back to the empty shell it once was. Meanwhile, Alex's pain continues to fester. The more he tries to make sense of his mother's decision to leave their family, the more bitter he becomes. He's furious with Rachel for abandoning the life they once had. He resents her new relationship with Jake, feeling that she has betrayed their family. His anger manifests in ways Rachel can't ignore: skipping school, hanging out with the wrong crowd, and staying out late. He seems to resent everything about the new life his mother is building. One evening, Rachel finds Alex in the living room, his face twisted with frustration. He lashes out, accusing her of destroying their family and replacing his father with some random guy who's barely old enough to be her son. The words sting. Rachel wants to comfort him, to explain why she made the choice she did, but she can't find the words. She feels helpless as she watches Alex's rebellion spiral out of control. The gap between them widens with each passing day, and she fears they may never be able to repair their fractured relationship. The tension reaches a boiling point when Alex storms out after another argument. Rachel's heart breaks as she watches him walk away, her guilt creeping back in. She knows she's made a choice that could ruin everything, and there are moments when she wonders if she's sacrificed her family for the sake of her own happiness. Just when Rachel is trying to make sense of her strained relationship with Alex, she stumbles upon something that shakes her to her core. While cleaning out Jake's closet, she discovers a box filled with old photographs, something that appears to be from his childhood. As she sifts through them, a particular photo catches her eye. It's an image of Jake as a young boy, smiling beside a man who looks eerily similar to her ex-husband, Robert. Her heart skips a beat as the implications set in. Could there be a connection between Jake and Robert that she doesn't know about? Rachel can't shake the feeling that she's stumbled upon something far deeper than she ever anticipated. The thought that Jake might have some hidden connection to her past is both thrilling and terrifying. But the more she stares at the photo, the more unsettled she becomes. Is this just a coincidence? Or is there something more going on here? Rachel becomes obsessed with this discovery, but she struggles with how to approach Jake. She doesn't want to jump to conclusions, but her instincts tell her that this connection might explain why she feels so drawn to Jake in the first place. There's something familiar about him, something she can't quite place. But how does she confront him about a photograph that might reveal a hidden past? Amid the tension between Rachel and Alex, an unexpected shift begins to take place. Though Alex still resents Jake and wants nothing to do with him, an unlikely event draws them together. One Saturday afternoon, Alex finds himself at a local basketball game, an event Jake invited him to, but which Alex had previously refused. This time, something is different. Alex, in a fit of frustration and wanting to escape his problems at home, decides to show up after all. At first, the two men sit in silence, neither knowing quite how to break the ice. But as the game progresses, Jake starts talking, sharing stories of his own childhood struggles. He opens up about growing up in a working-class neighborhood, struggling to make ends meet, and finding a sense of purpose through sports and fitness. Alex, who had always assumed Jake had a privileged background, begins to see him in a new light. Jake isn't just a rich, younger man dating his mother. He's someone who's worked hard for what he has, someone who understands the value of struggle and perseverance. Gradually, a quiet respect forms between them. It's not a friendship, at least not yet, but it's a connection, a bridge being built between two men who once viewed each other as adversaries. Alex sees Jake as more than just a threat to his family. He sees him as someone who, in his own way, is trying to navigate life just as Alex is. It doesn't fix the tension between them, but it's a step in the right direction. As Rachel continues to investigate the photo and the connection between Jake and Robert, the tension in the household begins to escalate. She can no longer ignore the gnawing feeling in her stomach that something bigger is at play. She questions Jake about the photograph, but he dismisses it as a coincidence, another strange twist of fate that has no deeper meaning. Yet Rachel can't shake the feeling that the man in the photo might hold the key to unlocking everything. Jake's reaction to her inquiry only deepens her suspicions. He becomes distant, refusing to talk about the past, and this only adds fuel to the fire. The more Rachel digs, the more she realizes that her world is far more tangled than she could have imagined. The atmosphere in the apartment grows increasingly tense as Rachel's investigation into Jake's past intensifies. She can no longer ignore the growing suspicion that Jake might be connected to Robert in a way that she hadn't anticipated. The photograph of young Jake with a man who looks exactly like Robert has haunted her, and she can't let it go. She's been trying to make sense of everything in her head, but now she knows she must confront Jake directly. One evening, after a long day of silence between them, Rachel finally gathers the courage to ask him about the photo. "Jake," she says, her voice trembling slightly, "I need to know the truth. What's the connection between you and Robert?" Jake looks up from his dinner, his face momentarily going blank. For a split second, Rachel can see his guard come up, the walls he spent so long building around himself beginning to harden. But she presses on. "I saw the photo, Jake. The one of you with Robert. What aren't you telling me?" Jake stands up, a deep sigh escaping his lips. He knows this moment is inevitable. He can't hide from it any longer. "I wasn't going to tell you this," he begins, his voice steady but laced with regret. "But I suppose you deserve to know." He reveals the truth. Jake and Robert were once close. Brothers, in fact. They were raised together in a poor neighborhood, forming a bond so tight that no one could have imagined it would ever break. But the truth is darker than Rachel could have ever imagined. Robert wasn't just Jake's older brother. He was also his mentor, his protector. They had shared everything, including their dreams of escaping their difficult lives. But when Robert became involved with Rachel, Jake felt betrayed. Robert had always promised that he would help Jake rise above their circumstances, but Rachel's presence in Robert's life created a rift between them. Jake had never forgiven Robert for abandoning their bond, choosing Rachel over their shared dream. When Robert married Rachel, Jake spiraled into anger and resentment, cutting himself off from both of them. The family he thought he would build with Robert was shattered, and he left everything behind: his family, his dreams, trying to move on from the betrayal. Rachel stands frozen, her mind reeling from the revelations. She never imagined that the man she had chosen to be with had such a deep connection to her past. The entire foundation of their relationship feels like it's been shaken to its core. But the hardest part isn't the betrayal. It's the realization that the man she loves is still living in the shadow of a grudge that has shaped his life. For the first time, Rachel truly understands the depth of Jake's pain. It wasn't just Robert she had left behind. It was the man who had once been like a brother to him. As much as Jake tried to move on, his unresolved feelings had built up walls between him and anyone who tried to get close. And now, Rachel is in the middle of that conflict, forced to choose between two men who are both a part of her life in ways she didn't fully comprehend until now. Just as the tension between Rachel and Jake reaches its breaking point, an unexpected incident jolts them into a new reality. Alex, who has been distant and rebellious throughout this entire process, is involved in a car accident while out with friends. Rachel receives a phone call that no mother ever wants to hear. Her heart drops when she learns that Alex has been hurt, though the injuries are not life-threatening. The news sends Rachel into a panic. In her rush to get to the hospital, she and Jake barely exchange words, but the weight of their earlier conversation lingers between them. In the car, Jake reaches out to her, his face filled with concern for Alex. "Rachel," he says quietly, "we need to get through this together." For the first time in a long while, Rachel feels the bond between them beginning to repair. She realizes that despite their differences and the painful history between them, Jake truly cares for her and Alex. As they wait for news at the hospital, Rachel takes Jake's hand, the unspoken understanding passing between them. In this moment, she sees not just the man she loves, but the man who, despite his troubled past, is willing to stand by her side. The tension between Rachel and Jake reaches its highest point when Alex, in a fit of anger, confronts them both at the hospital. In a heated outburst, Alex accuses Rachel of abandoning him for Jake, calling her selfish and inconsiderate for prioritizing their relationship over her own son's well-being. The words cut deep, and Rachel is at a loss for how to handle the situation. Jake, witnessing the emotional storm unfolding, steps in. For the first time, he raises his voice to Alex, not in anger, but with a sense of protective urgency. "Alex, you're not the only one hurting here," Jake says firmly. "I know things haven't been easy, but Rachel is doing everything she can. She's trying to make this work for all of us." Alex looks at Jake, stunned by his outburst. He had never expected Jake to defend his mother so passionately. For the first time, Alex sees Jake not just as a man who stole his mother's love, but as a person who is genuinely trying to help them rebuild their broken family. In the emotional aftermath of the confrontation, Rachel and Jake sit together, both exhausted and overwhelmed by the events of the day. The silence between them is heavy, but it's not as suffocating as it was before. Rachel takes a deep breath, finally allowing herself to process everything that has happened. "I didn't realize how much I've been carrying with me," Rachel admits, her voice breaking slightly. "The past, the mistakes, the choices. I thought I was running toward something better, but in reality, I was just running away from all the pain. I've hurt you, Jake, and I've hurt Alex." Jake looks at her, his expression softening. "Rachel, you didn't run away from us. You were just trying to find something real. And you did. We all did, in our own way. But we need to face our pasts if we're going to move forward together." It's in this moment that Rachel realizes the truth. The love she's searching for isn't about escaping her past or replacing Robert. It's about confronting the pain and building something new, together. Jake's willingness to face his demons and support her through the chaos is the breakthrough she needed. And Alex, for all his anger, is beginning to see that Jake isn't the enemy, He's just another person trying to heal and make sense of his own story. The fallout from the emotional confrontation at the hospital is not over. While Rachel and Jake have taken steps toward understanding one another, Alex is still grappling with his anger and hurt. His rebellion doesn't just evaporate overnight. Despite Jake's attempt to protect him, Alex feels betrayed on a deeper level. He isn't ready to forgive, and the tension between mother and son remains palpable. Over the next few days, Alex withdraws even further. He isolates himself in his room, refusing to talk to Rachel about what happened. Rachel, torn between her loyalty to Jake and her love for her son, feels helpless. Every attempt to reach out to Alex is met with cold silence, and it's clear that he's not ready to move forward. Rachel feels the weight of the choice she made all over again, questioning if she has done more harm than good by following her heart. Jake, on the other hand, becomes more understanding of Alex's pain. In an unexpected gesture, he reaches out to Alex, this time not as a parental figure, but as someone who understands the struggle. Jake invites Alex to join him for a bike ride, giving him space to talk, or not talk, without pressure. At first, Alex refuses, but there's something in Jake's quiet persistence that draws him out. During the ride, Jake opens up about his own relationship with Robert and the years he spent harboring resentment. "I thought being angry would protect me," Jake admits, "but in the end, it just kept me stuck. I don't want that for you, Alex. I know what it's like to lose someone close to you and not know how to move forward, but you don't have to carry it alone." For the first time, Alex begins to understand that Jake isn't just an outsider who's come to replace his father. Jake is a man who, like him, has suffered loss, who knows what it's like to feel betrayed. The walls around Alex's heart begin to crack, and while it will take time for him to fully accept Jake, there's a shift, a tiny seed of understanding being planted. As Alex starts to make small strides in his journey toward healing, Rachel finds herself in a similar place of reflection. She has spent so much time focused on repairing her relationship with Jake and managing Alex's anger that she's neglected to take care of herself. In quiet moments, when she's alone, Rachel wrestles with the consequences of her choices. She wonders if she was selfish, if leaving Robert was the right decision after all, if she had abandoned her son for the sake of her own happiness. One evening, as Rachel is sitting by the window, looking out at the night sky, she reflects on everything she's learned. She thinks about Robert, about the good times they had, and about the inevitable breakdown of their marriage. She realizes that she had stayed with Robert for years out of a sense of duty, even after the love had faded. The decision to leave him wasn't about escaping. It was about finally choosing herself. She needed to stop living in the shadows of her past and build something that was authentically hers. In the quiet moments of self-reflection, Rachel also acknowledges Jake's role in her life. Their connection is complicated, but she can see that it's real. She no longer feels torn between Robert and Jake. Instead, she sees Jake as someone who has his own struggles and his own journey to navigate, and she recognizes that they have the potential to heal together, not by ignoring the past, but by confronting it head-on. Jake, too, begins to reflect on his past, especially his relationship with Robert. He has spent so many years holding on to his anger and resentment that it has defined his entire worldview. But after his conversation with Alex, something shifts in him. He realizes that if he truly wants to build a life with Rachel and Alex, he needs to let go of the past. Holding on to the bitterness only prevents him from moving forward. Jake takes a bold step in his healing journey when he reaches out to Robert's family. He doesn't expect them to forgive him for the years of estrangement, but he knows he needs to make amends. He begins by writing a heartfelt letter to Robert's sister, explaining his pain and regret and how he has carried it for far too long. He asks if they can find a way to honor Robert's memory, not through bitterness, but through understanding. When he shares this with Rachel, she's taken aback, surprised by Jake's willingness to confront the past and make peace with it. She hadn't realized how much his resentment toward Robert had influenced his behavior toward her and Alex. In that moment, Rachel feels a sense of hope, a sense that maybe, just maybe, they can all start healing together. As the days pass, Alex's attitude begins to soften. He still struggles with the idea of Jake being a part of their family, but he slowly starts acknowledging that Jake isn't the enemy. One evening, as the three of them sit down for dinner, Alex, out of nowhere, cracks a joke at Jake's expense. It's lighthearted and playful, and for the first time in a long while, it feels like they are a family. Rachel can't help but smile at the small breakthrough. While the road ahead is still filled with challenges, Rachel, Jake, and Alex begin to find common ground. They start to understand that healing takes time, and that no one is perfect. But what matters now is that they are willing to try, to be open with one another, and to embrace the changes they need to make in order to rebuild what they once lost. Months have passed since the emotional turmoil that rocked their lives. The healing process for Rachel, Jake, and Alex hasn't been quick, but it has been meaningful. Rachel has found a sense of balance, not just with her family, but within herself. She's taken on a new perspective toward her relationships. The pain of her past and the difficult decision to leave Robert no longer feel like burdens she carries alone. Through conversations with Jake, the healing of her son, and her own internal growth, Rachel has learned the power of forgiveness, not just toward others, but toward herself. Her bond with Jake has solidified into a partnership built on trust, mutual respect, and the shared understanding that healing takes time. Rachel walks through their home now with a lighter heart. She notices the small details, the laughter in the kitchen when Alex is making pancakes, the light shining through the windows where Jake practices his guitar in the mornings. The home no longer feels like a house she's just been surviving in. It has become a space of peace, growth, and love. One morning, as Rachel sits with Jake on the porch, looking out at the horizon, she feels an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She never expected that love would come into her life again after Robert, and she certainly didn't foresee it coming in the form of a complicated, messy, but incredibly beautiful relationship with Jake. Still, she knows this journey is far from over. But now, at least, she has hope and clarity for the future. Jake, too, has undergone a significant transformation. His trip to Robert's family was a turning point, a moment of letting go of the resentment that had defined his life for so long. Reaching out to Robert's sister and sharing his grief and regrets has provided him with a catharsis he didn't realize he needed. He no longer sees Robert as an enemy or as the reason for his pain. Instead, Jake begins to recognize Robert's flaws as part of the larger human condition, and he starts to embrace the idea that forgiveness is not about forgetting. It's about moving forward. Jake's relationship with Alex has evolved as well. There are still awkward moments, still times when the pain of the past seems too much to bear. But now there is a sense of camaraderie. Jake and Alex don't pretend to be father and son, but there is an unspoken respect between them. It's clear that while they may never have the bond Rachel once hoped for between them, they have created something genuine in its own right, a quiet understanding. Jake is no longer the man burdened by bitterness. He is someone who has acknowledged his past and is now ready to step into a new chapter of life. His relationship with Rachel has grown, not just in love, but in shared understanding. Together, they are building something that is stronger than their individual selves. The most significant change, however, is seen in Alex. Over the months, his rebellion has softened. He no longer resents Jake as the interloper in their family. Slowly, the walls Alex had built around his heart have started to crumble, though his journey is far from over. Alex spends more time with Jake now. Their conversations are no longer filled with tension, but instead, moments of awkward humor and even honesty. One afternoon, as they're working together on a home project, Jake offers some advice about handling anger in healthy ways. Alex, initially resistant, listens intently. For the first time, he realizes that Jake isn't just trying to replace his father. He's trying to show him a different way to approach life's challenges. Alex doesn't completely forgive Rachel right away, but he begins to appreciate her choices. He starts seeing her as a woman who made the difficult decision to choose herself, and in doing so, she gave him the space to find his own way. The respect he begins to show Rachel becomes a silent acknowledgement of everything she has done for him and for their family. The breakthrough with Alex happens unexpectedly one evening. After a quiet dinner, Alex looks at Rachel and Jake, both of them sitting together on the couch. In an uncharacteristic moment of vulnerability, Alex says, "I'm sorry. I know it's been hard, on all of us." Rachel and Jake exchange a surprised but pleased glance. Alex continues, I think I'm ready to try again." That simple statement marks a milestone in their journey. Alex is ready to let go of the past, to stop fighting, and to start moving forward. While their family dynamic will never be perfect, Alex's words signal the beginning of a new chapter where love and acceptance begin to replace anger and resentment. By the time Rachel, Jake, and Alex sit down for a family dinner in the final scene, it is evident that they are no longer the same people they were when the story began. They have healed, each in their own way, and they have begun to rebuild their lives together. The atmosphere in the room is lighthearted, filled with laughter, joking, and a sense of calm that was once unimaginable. For Rachel, it's a quiet victory. She looks around at the faces of the people she loves and realizes that they are finally a family, despite all the turmoil they have been through.